All right, welcome back to another episode of Eviction Notice. This is episode 44. Today is April 16th. I'm here with Lewis and a repeating guest, something to become a very common thing. We're here with tinkzorg. Tinkzorg, how you doing today?
Greetings, fellow Christian gamers. Um, Doing pretty fine. And today we're going to talk about, I think, the fall of Western civilization as has happened here in Europe.
Yes, the Islamic hordes are inbound.
It's even worse than that. It's the Magyars, man. It's Peter Magyar, which is a really funny name, by the way. Like that's a like the equivalent would be calling someone in America like John American. But um I mean, people who have followed the news know that like Orban was kind of like this controversial figure in Europe, like the leader of Fidesz, the ruling party in Hungary, and he had been like prime minister for 16 years or something. But he lost the election. And the reason that's kind of interesting and important, given like the angle of your show, I think is that what people don't realize is that now, like the a huge wing of this entire, like Steve Bannon, Yora Massoni, like building a based right wing that's like pro-Israel and like MAGA adjacent and quote unquote like slopulist, like that has completely collapsed now. The Hungarians were like the big money in that scene. They had all of these institutions, like the Danube Institute, the Corvinus Collegium. They were deeply tied into like Europe's version of CPAC, and now with like this electoral defeat, from what I'm hearing from all of these people, is that um, it's basically like the sack of Rome. Like the barbarians are coming, and they're having like crisis meetings where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
don't worry, we have money for like 9 months or whatever, and then they get fired the next day.
Yeah. Well, one thing
Um,
I think that's the big thing is that I didn't realize, and why I wanted to have you on, is that how much of this was like the Hungarian state.
yeah,
Because everyone knew there was like this Hizoni thing, and like Bannon famously left America to go start up all these, populist right wing Zionist parties that were anti-migration but loved Israel. And then Hizoni kind of came out of nowhere, and the entire, dissident right decided to fall behind this guy, or there's at least a big push for it. But how much, like, as it seems what we're telling us, that the cash behind this was not like a big donor of any kind, or even like the Israeli state or George Soros, Musk. It was like the actual Hungarian government, which
yeah.
it makes a certain sense. Like, Hungary is a poor country, but conservative intellectuals are cheap. You know.
Yeah, I mean they got Rod Dreher to move over. He's like this quote unquote famous conservative writer. He was at the American Conservative, and he had like this special grant, like some donor paid specifically so Rod Dreher could have a podcast and write a column. But then this actually ended, and I'm not
Yes,
making this up.
I know.
It ended because Rod Dreher wrote like a column about his first experience watching like a black guy with an uncircumcised dick in middle school. And he said like this was like staring at a weird root tuber vegetable. That was his exact words. And the donor reads this and he goes like, "Yo, man, what the fuck? Like,
And
why
also
am I
before
paying for
this,
this?"
Roger, intellectual is a bull. I mean, yes, okay.
Yeah,
The reason that he had a personal like donor set up with the American Conservative or was that he was an orator, American, but he was too weird and like he is a bizarre individual, and like it was always really really weird. Like he is the kind of guy who was born Baptist, who converted to traditional Catholicism, who decided that wasn't based enough, not woke enough, and converted to Orthodoxy. And then I don't know if he's still Orthodox, but he's also he's been like divorced. Like he's also like closeted homosexual.
That's why he committed to Orthodoxy, so he could get divorced.
Well, but like also a closeted homosexual. He's like the reason his wife divorced him is he just like lived like in Hungary for like 4 years away from them, and then he called it. I read his article on this, like his surprise divorce. It's like, bro, your wife lives in Louisiana, down the road from me, and you're living in Hungary, and like, how many years do you think this was gonna go on? Like,
I mean, they like so anyway. Like he is kind of he's a weird dude.
Well, a big point. It was always bizarre to me that the Hungarian state and these institutions were saying, "Oh, we got Dreer." You know, it's like it's a bizarre it's like if you had a movie and you're like, well, I can't even think of a comedian who's weird enough. Like he doesn't have star power. They just kind of said he did. Like it's like one of those he's big in Europe kind of things. But like it was purely artificial.
Yeah. So like they got him over and they paid him $106K like US dollars a year.
So he's the richest man in Hungary.
Yeah, the average or the median wage in Hungary is 17K. So like they paid him like a fucking rock star. And it was all, taxpayer money. And they all used all of these like, taxpayer funds in order to build this like conservative empire, which I think they thought would be an asset, both in terms of like influencing, Donald Trump, but also in terms of buttressing like Orban could have built palaces or like zoos or whatever, but instead he built like this new conservative movement, and it was all just fake. And now it's all just falling apart. And what I find really interesting is that, I mean, look at America, look at like the JD Vance at TPUSA, and tell me if this is a movement that's gonna survive.
Well, I think the iconic, the kind of to put so JD Vance is a creature of this thing. He the idea of converting to being a traditional Catholic, being a thing you would do, kind of came out of this this orbit, this sphere that tied in, which is also really dumb for a lot of reasons to tie like electoral parties to traditional Catholicism. But anyway, JD Vance famously is like the representative of this force in Europe. He kind of looks like a younger Rod Dreer if you see them side by side as well. They have the same kind of closeted homosexuality, managed to still got a couple kids, similar beards and beards. Although Rod Dreer, of course, married a white woman, which is unforgivable, I guess. But leaving aside,
the joke very problematic.
Yeah, very problematic. But of course, like he doesn't actually seem to believe this, has some sort of code. It's better for society. Anyway, the extent of this influence operation came when, in my mind, when JD Vance is on the podium endorsing Viktor Orban in front of Hungarians, speaking in English, of course, and which is the reason that doesn't go like. I'm sorry, like your patriotic Hungarian bit has to be in Hungarian. It's like I'm going to go off at how Orban alienated the actual patriots, which fucked him. But they're saying, "Oh, we have power." It's very Israeli, actually, where like they're saying we have power over Trump. They're like, you should vote for Netanyahu because he has Trump's ear. That's a very Israeli election thing to do. Yeah. And Vance is doing this bit about how I love Orban. I want Orban to be, and so does Donald Trump. And this is not a surprise. Like this is a speech. He's not going off the cuff. It's like the first 5-minute speech he goes, and I'm going to call Trump right now, and we're going to make a big show, putting Trump on speaker and dialing him, and he puts it with the fucking microphone, and it goes to voicemail, and he's like, oh, he's a busy man. And but like clearly that's a bit you don't do that for real. That's a bit. And Trump just like got distracted or didn't give a fuck, or he just has JDVL go straight to voicemail because who wants to talk to that guy? And then at 45 minutes like later in the speech, he tries to do it again, and it goes to voicemail again. And you're like, oh, this is like this whole thing didn't work. Like everything about it's kind of emblematic of the whole project. Because also people forget Orban predates this project. This was like Orban's his success is not of this movement he was trying to build. It was like his personal pet project.
Yeah.
The Orban coalition predates this whole thing by eight years, I think, or something like that. Like you can't credit this movement that they've been trying to make. Like you can't say, well, at least they got Orban. They didn't do that. Orban did that. Orban was a singular figure in the same way that Berlusconi was a singular figure in Italy, right? Like
he came in on his own, and then eventually like he becomes part of this sort of influence project. And like the funny thing is, like post October 7th, you have these Israelis showing up at all of these like base nationalist conferences. And like in a previous life, I would have actually been invited to them. But like, I was already out of the game when October 7th happened. But if like you go to them, Israelis show up and they tell like the base nationalists, like the Sweden Democrats, once we've ethnically cleansed, the West Bank and Gaza, this is how many Palestinians we want you in Sweden to accept. Like we want you to take 150K, the Germans can take 400K, and like the quote unquote nationalists, they just sit there and go, yes, sir, like sure, whatever. And it like that was the nature of this project in a sense. Like it was this sort of like the Nationalist International was always just kind of a comprador organization. And people went along with it because, I mean, like it paid well. And now the money is gone, and like it's like tears in the rain. Like it's all disappearing.
Well, so I do want to talk about how like the actual, because you mentioned like it's not just that it was these like the Hazoniite Bannonite Orban project to we're going to call it Orban Bannon Hazoniism to put a little Marxist spin on it. It was unique. There was a little more of a playbook than just like we're going to love Israel and hate immigrants, right?
Yeah.
They were trying to spin up parties that were a kind of on the UKIP model a little bit, independent of the traditional Tory or conservative leaning center right parties, to do this kind of thing, which is a unique feature of these politics. Traditionally, this has not been the move if you're going to do this kind of Israeli campaign. Traditionally, what you do is you just influence the right-wing party or the left-wing party, right? And you use the American system. You use the National Endowment for Democracy. You use the Radio Free Europe, all of these like American organs. This was a new play, and it was based on like the dissatisfaction with both it did recognize that both left and right had credibility crises in all of mainstream politics. But you can see how it would become very expensive to be starting up all these like grandsons of SS veterans for Israel parties. Like that's not really, and also like they're about privatization and cutting taxes. Like it's not a tendency that exists in European politics. Traditionally, you would see like far right parties tend to be more into like reading Evola and boxing than they do about privatization. It's a very weird trend to try to take those guys. In 2017 or 18, I forget. I was in Madrid, and it was some kind of festival in Madrid that I did not plan to be. One of those things when you're traveling, you find yourself in the middle of some cultural festival you've never heard of, and everyone's wearing red and there's roses everywhere. It's very fun, kind of a cultural thing. And also all these political parties had their tents out, and the Vox party had their tent out, and I had heard of them, and they're a based whatever nationalist party, but they have some Zionist leanings. And I'm looking at the guys there, and they're all clearly former skinhead-ish things, and they're also there is like a Falange party in Spain, so they're not. Maybe they had been pulled out of that, but they had like the Fred Perry on, but they were also kind of older and schlubbier. They weren't like jacked, and they used to be like. they were trying to. The vibe I got, I don't speak Spanish. I just said it. I was just like passed them and politely exchanged. Oh, politics. What's your party? In very bad Spanish. But it did seem like there. Not that I was off or that it was like they were bad people, but it did seem like a career criminal trying to go legit in a lot of ways. That makes sense. Like these are this was they were trying to take a far right core that is, I don't want to say criminal, but there's an aspect of that, and and smash it into like a competitive electoral thing, and you can see why why they have issues with that.
Yeah, I mean that's the
and why that makes sense.
That's like the antecedent of the Sweden Democrats here in Sweden, and now they've gone past that phase, and now they're just like going into like full tilt, like turbo Zionism. They're traveling to Jerusalem, like they're kissing the wall. And this is not something European politicians normally do. But there is like a video of Jimmy Åkesson, the leader of the Sweden Democrats. He has the kippa on. He's pretending to be like the Speaker of the House in the US or whatever, like turbo Zionism. And that is because like there's not enough like political content here for these parties once they sort of reach power. They eventually have to turn towards some sort of like incredibly like overblown like Americanism or Zionism, just because like they need some sort of legitimacy source, they need a power source, and it's just
also they can't they for structural reasons they can't actually deport the migrants.
Yeah, sure. Like they don't want to.
Like what's very funny is center left parties are better at actually like migrant deporting in Europe than right wing parties are, because they have
like in Denmark.
Yeah, they're doing it for economic reasons as opposed to like.
Well, yeah. If you're a left-wing party, you're not hugely like interested in immigration just to replace workers.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have all of these, at least in Europe, you still have these vestigial labor unions and so on, and they go like, well, we can't like have H-1B visas, like. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's the same reason why like in China they have very low amounts of immigration. But when it comes to like these Nordic countries like Denmark, Norway, maybe even Sweden, the way that their economy functions, right, with like the labor unions and this type of tripartite corporatist model, they literally can't do immigration. Like they don't have minimum wage laws. Like the way that their labor market works is predicated upon strong labor unions to negotiate with firm owners in the state, mingles in there. They literally can't do immigration or it would destroy their labor market.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that model is like 85% dead, 90% dead at this point. But like even the 10% that's still alive, it basically means that like there is a different political dynamic here. Like H-1B visas in the US, it's all about like, well, Stephen Miller is out saying like, we need to rethink this migration thing. We need to go for like the high value, like the based deportation guy goes like, we need the high value Guatemalans to pick the lettuce. Well, I mean, you still have the whole, we need Thai people or whatever to pick, lingonberries in the forest. Like that stuff exists in Sweden. But in general, like it's much more problematic. You can't really do H-1B visas to replace like programmers or whatever. Like doing all of the things that are like commonplace in America, where like you fire everyone at the hospital and you just hire Indians. That would still be unacceptable, at least to the left. And so you have this dynamic where the right wants to say, well, we're going to deny all asylum claims, but we need all of this like labor migration to dump wages.
What was the joke they made about Farage? It was like pulls out, Packies in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is like the typical, we need the Pakis because they at least know their place, which is
Yeah, they speak
to
English.
crash
They
wages.
they work
Yeah,
for nothing.
and Poles, they think they're like Poles are too white. Like Poles think, well, we're Europeans and we're
Yeah.
Christians,
God, do you
and
remember
so we should have.
that documentary that UKIP did, or was it? Might have been just Brexit before you. It was, but it was a documentary on like I forget the name of it. Anyway, there's a really funny clip where what they're doing like found footage, and they're chasing this like we have this Polish guy who's like living on whatever benefits, and he's like at work, and they're tracking how many smoke breaks he's taking, and he's like a plumber or some kind of sanitation worker, and he's like going out and smoking too much.
Yeah.
And they're talking about how like how lazy he is and how ineffective these Polish workers are.
Retarded.
And then the counterpoint is like this Chinese woman who's like busting her ass working at a grocery store. It's like, this is what we need. We need more Chinese people.
Yeah. I mean, that is exactly like that is the right wing in Europe. It's like we have too many sort of lazy Poles. We need some, Bangladeshi migrants or whatever, just in order to like help business owners. And so at the end, like if you do the bargain here, like the Sweden Democrats have done, where you basically say, well, we're a right-wing party, so we're going to govern with the right wing. Okay, well, the right wing is all about migration in order to lower wages. And so you can tilt at the windmill of like denying asylum claims, which the left is in favor of asylum for, bleeding hearts reasons. But like at the end of the day, you're still like ushering in demographic replacement, because I mean that is just a side effect of like the pro-business policy here. And so at the end of the day, like you put on that kippah and you go and kiss the wall, not because you actually believe in anything. Like Jimmy Åkesson is not a Christian. He is like famously kind of dissolute. He's a online gambling addict. Like he doesn't believe in the second coming or the rapture or anything like that. But he goes and kisses the wall and goes for this whole pro-Israel thing because he's like, it's a cargo cult. Like he this works for the Americans, so surely this can do something magical for us. But the thing about Yoram Hassouni, I think you said it to me, Lewis, like a day ago or so, that like he is basically on the way out. Like he appeared on the scene from nowhere. Like he wrote a book, and everyone like in the conservative world reviewed it favorably, which is like you don't
That
get
book
that
sucked,
if you
by
just
the way.
yeah it was. I mean, it was terrible, and it still got all of these rave reviews. And then he sets up like the Edmund Burke Foundation, and nobody really knows like where he gets the money or anything. But it's clear it's like that this is Israeli state money, plus maybe like a few like American Jewish billionaire donors, but probably mostly Israeli.
The thing with Hazone on the way out is that I don't think so. Hazone had sources that were probably independent of Orban that go, but that like Hasbara Jewish money, call it what you will, that they're done with Hazone too. Like I was talking about, well, who could come in and replace, like, because I can't imagine the Danube Institute. It is in Hungary, right? It is not going to provide that much cash to keep the lights on if like a private investor wanted to come and reestablish it. But I think the reason they're going to go away, it's not actually lack of money. It's that this model of standing up these kind of parties is actually been judged to be suboptimal by the Israeli government and like the Jewish community, right? What they actually decide they prefer, there's kind of a little bit A/B testing, is like, do you want these like parties, grandsons of SS veterans for Israel, or do you want just Tommy Robinson, right? Where you will try to get a single populist figure who is nominally apolitical and doesn't run, but will just have his people contain that kind of anti-migrant energy and just have them vote for the center-right party. Because the center-right parties in Europe are just the most converged, co-opted, like they're like, I'm sorry, there's no way of like, you are not infiltrating the Christian Democrats in Germany. Like they are.
Yeah.
It's like,
and the interesting thing here with Hassouni is like, back when I still followed I don't think he's like super relevant anymore. But like back when he was still sort of holding these big flashy conferences, I think that the NatCon thing now, like it's happening pretty soon, but it's being held in Jerusalem this year, which they always like studiously try to
Next year in
avoid.
Jerusalem.
Yeah, exactly. Like they held it in like, you know, it's in Florida or in like Brussels or
It was in
in
Hungary 1 year too,
Budapest.
right? I believe yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But because like they really wanted to avoid being mask off. But the thing is, like Hasone, he used to be very interested in like this whole, how can we have like a based sort of conservative, like right wing society that's like a huge coalition. So like Catholics get to be Catholic, you know, Protestants get to be Protestants, conservative Jews get to study the Torah, but like we need to have a new sort of non-liberal modus vivendi where we all like pull in the same direction. That shit, like they, you know, that has completely fallen out of favor. Like what you have today is you have Trump and like the conservative movement like beefing with the Pope and doing this like 8 days of Holocaust remembrance, like state, like this is the state
Is
religion.
today
I
day
mean,
2 or
even
3 of the Holocaust remembrance? By the way,
yeah,
I don't want to
yeah,
get it
and
wrong.
they're
I wouldn't want to. You know, it's a national holiday now, apparently, or whatever.
yeah, but like the thing is now they have these
I called that
like
at work today for day 3
obviously
of the Holocaust. Sorry.
yeah. Exactly. But like they have these state sponsored things now where it's like, you know, all of Congress, and then you have people from like active duty US Army
Yes.
doing the like lighting the menorah. And like this is a religious symbol. Like you are entering some really like problematic territory in terms of like, is it the First Amendment, right? Like the
Nuremberg
injunction against.
Christianity vindicated, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, exactly. Like they're going mask off with this stuff now, where it's like, okay, you, Mr. Sumer, Maxum Sum, who was born like 5 years after 9/11, you have to go up there and light the menorah and say, I'm private so and so, I remember. And like this is your job. If you don't do that, you're gonna run into trouble. Like they've completely abandoned the whole like, we are gonna have like this alliance with the goyim, and now it's just like this pure. They're going for what
We're
John
doing Jewish
Mearsheimer
supremacy.
calls.
It's just
Yeah,
it's Jewish supremacy.
yeah,
It's not. This is actually, I think, why they find American like Christian Protestant Christianity, or American, whatever you want to call it, like so compelling, and they like so it saddens these people to have to beef with to just deal with the Pope, because they like to be able to just pick popes.
yeah.
The woman who is like the what's her name? I forget her name. She's like the spiritual advisor of the White House, whatever. They just picked her. She believes in like
Angels
basically
are
racial
being
holy.
sent from Africa right now.
No, like yeah, she
You've
believes in
seen
like
that.
she believes in recruiting Latin Americans and Africans into a holy war to save Jerusalem. Like she's an insane person, right? But they pick her to be like the Pope. She is the Pope of America. Is this lady who like she does the thing where she goes
Holy
to
fuck, the Pope of
like church
America.
and she points at people and they fall over. Like it's absolute slop.
Oh God, can you imagine how cold the Pope? Like if we had an American, like not an American Pope, because like the current Pope
We have
is
that.
American.
We have an
He's
American
doing
Pope.
really
He's pretty
good, but
cool,
like
actually.
the Pope of
You know.
America, like
Yeah.
holy shit, that'd be so cold. The Catholics have been causing a lot of problems with the administration. You know, not obviously you have the beef with the Pope, but you remember Carrie Pagine Baller
Yeah.
or Ballin, I think that was her name, right? I mean, she was a real, like an actual real Catholic who took this stuff seriously, and she understood. She said, I can't go along with this dispensationalist Zionist stuff. You know, this is a heresy in my faith, and they're killing people, and it's something I can't stand for. They just fired her ass. Like they immediately said, okay, you got to go. You cannot be doing this stuff and saying this stuff and being in this position. You have to go. And that looked really bad. because she's supposed to be like on like
Well, it was the Religious Freedom Committee.
Yeah. She's on like the Religious Liberty Board or Religious Freedom Committee, whatever it was called, right? The whole thing is promoting different religions, right? And she's saying like this is like a fundamental thing in my faith, which is that the church is now who is like is in contact with the Abrahamic covenant, and we can't co-sign the murder of innocent people. And so for saying that, she's fired. And then the stuff with the Pope, I am going to keep repeating this. Jeffrey Epstein was sending Steve Bannon around to do a smear campaign against Pope Francis, right? Yeah. And so like we had like when this, and you saw like as soon as the Pope said like, yeah, like this war is evil, and like the people who pray and say amen who start wars, they're essentially blasphemy and God doesn't hear your prayers. And that's obviously we know who that's a dig at Trump. And Trump, comes out and does this huge spiel about the Pope. And then immediately you saw all these right-wing accounts on Twitter and right-wing political commentators and media pundits immediately started doing the thing about how the Pope is woke and he's not talking about Muslim killing of Christians and Muslim migration into Europe, and the Catholic Church has always been a subversive part of America. That is Epstein playbook.
But it's not just that; it's also fucking stupid. Like for the last 35 years, ever since the Cold War ended, because arguably you could say we had a kind of a Cold Warrior Pope for the last half of the Cold War, sure. But for the last 30 years, under Pax Americana, the Pope's job has been to look at wars and say bad. That's all he does. And you can just ignore him. You can do all the wars. You can just ignore the Pope. Like, they chose to engage negatively with the Vatican and the Holy See and the Pope, like in a very conscious way. Which is when I said this is a shift. Like, this is something different than the Orbanite project, right? The Orbanite project would not make this mistake because they were trad cats luck. This is a dumber, newer thing. This is October 7th, American Empire,
Exactly. I mean, this, like, Yoram Masoni, like, the reason his star is fading, and it's not even because, like, his own personal views, but, like, the methods he chose. Like, he is a pre-October 7th creature, like, or at least his strategies. I mean, he obviously supports, like, this is just for him a matter of strategy. But like, if you think about like that Religious Freedom Commission, like that is 100% something that would be inside Hassoni's wheelhouse, where and back in the day, like that Catholic wouldn't have been fired, because back in the day the point would have been to find some sort of ecumenical like compromise, like you talk to everyone and you try to sway everyone on board with your project.
Well, also, her demands were very light. It's that they were having some kind of Zionist speaker who was talking about Zionism, and she just wanted to have, like, she wasn't doing, like, I hate Israel stuff. She was doing, if we're going to have a Zionist event, a religious Zionist event, we need to have either an anti-Zionist Jew or like an anti-Zionist Muslim to come and balance this thing out, because what are we doing here? And like that, which was a very modest proposal. Like that's the kind of thing a religious freedom board would do. It's like, okay, well, we're going to see both sides of this thing and do their thing.
Yeah, and Hassoni, like pre-October 7th, he would have said, okay, fine, we'll call Mehdi Hassan.
It's the spirit of debate,
Yeah, we'll call Mehdi Hassan and we'll pay him under the table. Like, so he actually doesn't say anything. You have this sort of stable of quote unquote, like, we'll take this number one acolyte of Noam Chomsky. You know Noam Chomsky, right? He's the baddest, most Israel-hating guy out there. Like, we're gonna get like Noam Chomsky's top guy for this. Now everyone can be happy. But today, it's like, no, there is not going to be any compromise. It's going to be like I mean, Ben Shapiro was out there talking about Noahide laws. How like, and before that, like the whole thing at like the Daily Wire would be like Ben Shapiro sort of blaspheming against Christ, and the Christians saying, "Thank you, Ben Shapiro, you are my greatest ally." But now it's not even like blaspheming against Christ or saying like he was just this troublemaker and thief. Now he's actually laying out, like, as a Jew, um, obviously I don't believe in Christ's divinity. What I believe in is like the divinity or like the chosenness of the Jewish people, but non-Jews can still exist in the world that is to come as long as they follow like the 7 Noahide laws. And the thing about the 7 Noahide laws is, yes, if you follow them, you will have a place in the same way that like a beloved farm animal has a place, like on a ranch. Maybe that beloved farm animal is treated kindly until it is slaughtered, but like it's not a fucking co-owner of the ranch, number one. Number two, if you believe in the Trinity, that is basically, according to halachic law or whatever, like that is blaspheming against God, which means you should be put to death. Specifically, you should have your head cut off. And so the fact that Shapiro is out there talking about like Noahide laws, I mean, it really shows that like they are shifting gears here into just laying out like this sort of power relationship they want to have much more openly. I mean, imagine trying to actually get people like Catholics to accept Noahide laws. Where
I mean, they've done this with the education policy for DEI. It's already done. The policy went from, oh, we're going to do it legally. It's the shift where they're selling it as we're going to get rid of affirmative action and DEI and just do non-preferential race blind, religious blind hiring and firing and students, and sure, fine, standardized tests only, whatever. And then when in effect they don't do this and they do DEI but only for Jews. Only Jews get preferential treatment and access and scholarships and admissions preference. Like, so it's only that it's just the shift from the colorblind or liberal or it's not, now it's just we're doing just Jewish primacy. That's the policy of education. And also the policy in the Department of Justice with who they are charging for certain crimes and who's getting pardoned for certain crimes. It's like they're getting closer and closer to just allowing white collar crime for Jewish financiers. They're pardoning them and also waiving restitution for some of these these scammers, criminals.
And the thing here is, like, you're gonna see much more, like, the conflict with the Pope and with Catholicism is only beginning. Because if you think about, like, when I was doing like research for the Nuremberg Christianity article, I sort of started reading about like the history of Christian Zionism in the US. And it's actually quite interesting because like you kind of realize that it's much more like haphazard and chaotic than people think.
Yes.
Like at the beginning of the 20th century, like, yes, these people are premillenarian dispensationalists, but I mean, they still view themselves as Christian in like the basic sense, where it's like, Christ, like God sent his son to earth to sacrifice himself to redeem humanity. And we live in like the sort of post-sacrifice world where you have this ability to attain salvation through the redemptive power of the blood of Christ. They still believe that. The thing that makes them unique compared to other Christians is that they believe that like the second coming is, if not imminent, then like fairly soon. And they can actually like speed this up because it's all about prophecy and sort of interpreting the signs. They can, like, if they cause the signs to happen, they cause the second coming to happen faster. And so Jews are needed in Jerusalem in order to, fulfill a requirement, at which point Christ will come back, and like Jews will get one last chance to convert. Most of them won't because they're Jews, and they will burn in hellfire, whatever. Like they're not the point. Like the Jews are just like kind of a sort of a means to an end. And this is the if you listen to like a leftoid critiquing like Christian Zionism, this is the story they will tell you. Oh wow, these Christian Zionists, they are actually racist against Jews. Like they believe that once Christ comes back, all the Jews will die. So like they're being really cynical. That's not how what passes for Christian Zionism today works. You had this famous pastor, I can't remember his name. He went out and said, like, when Christ comes back, he will come back in the form of a Jewish rabbi, and he will lead the Jews to victory. And it's like, okay, now you are something completely different. And like Christian Zionism in the US is dropping the Christian part in a sense, and like transitioning.
In many ways, even Christian Zionism is just frankly just in American discourse for the last 20 years has been vastly overstated because of George W. Bush's like personal beliefs.
Yeah.
Christian Zionism is not popular in America. It's relatively rare. American politicians, especially politicians, intellectuals, they are secular Zionists who are Christian. Secular Zionism is
I mean, there you can find a couple like super like Pete Hegseth, I think, is like an example of like,
but it's very minoritarian. If you were to sample like the Senate, the Republicans in the U.S. Senate, you would find 4 out of the 50 are religious Zionists.
That's what. I would agree. And one thing when it comes to Christian Zionism is even I would go and say like this. You know, people like talk about the Schofield Bible and how like probably like some Jew like got money. I don't even think like back then like World War I shit. Like I don't think that was popular. What made like Christian Zionism, it was fundamentally like a top-down central effort from Jews who owned, you know, the media, ABC, CBS, and it was Billy Graham. They invented televangelism.
Yeah, but my point is that it's always just been a very minor tendency. I understand that, but what I'm saying is it's never been it's not a Gentile project. Like evangelical Christianity was promoted by Jews, along with, you know, Billy Graham was really big with MLK. And so I think they had like the 4th and 5th of great. It's either like the 4th or 5th Great Awakening. I forget which one it is. And go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like I was just gonna say that like there is this podcast podcast called American Prestige, and they have this like a history of Christian Zionism, and just to sort of buttress what you were saying, Dumanat, with like this being a project, like not a Gentile project, like the Israelis very quickly sort of realized that like they have like a foreign ministry, but then they have like a foreign ministry for religious affairs, like super quickly. But the thing about that process is, like at the start, like you have American Christian Zionists who are like, they are legit, like they believe in what they believe in. And so they sit down and go like, we need to study the Bible to find out what like the biblical borders of Israel are, so that like we know exactly when the second coming will occur. And then like the pastors that tell their own like congregation, you need to study on your own and you need to form your own opinions. Like they are progressively sidelined because like the pastors who say, no, like listen to like the social democrat atheist in Tel Aviv, like what she says are the borders of Israel. That's the biblical borders. Like, don't worry about it. Like, those people get the money and they get the access. So, like, over time, this is like a domesticated move. This movement becomes domesticated, and it becomes like, you know, like one of those Monsanto plants or whatever, where they've engineered out like the being able to drop seeds. So the plant can't actually like reproduce without it outside of a lab. Like it kind of becomes like you take corn and you turn it into this kind of sterile, like GMO crop that's like produced for one specific thing. And the interesting thing about like what remains of Christian Zionism today, like like George W. Bush, he was kind of an OG Christian Zionist in the sense that like he really cared about like which country is Gog and which country is Magog and all of that stuff. Like that used to be popular way back when. But today, like Christian Zionism, it's like it's this kind of inchoate, like it's this what it's trending towards is basically like a religion centered around like the Noahide laws. Like it is transitioning away from the figure of Christ toward like
The Jewish
worshiping
people.
Jews
They've
as a
replaced
collective.
Christ with
Yeah.
the Jewish people.
And like being a quote unquote Christian Zionist in that frame is just being like the archetypical, like the good follower, the good Gentile that follows the Noahide laws. The problem with that, and this is why I think like the fights with the Pope are gonna continue getting worse, is that like no self-respecting Christian is ever gonna accept that. And if you are like this American evangelical or whatever, it's much harder for you to mount some sort of like legitimate resistance because you don't have a pontiff who says, no, sorry, like I can draw upon thousands of years of legitimacy and this entire like church structure telling you this is the wrong interpretation of your religious faith.
Well,
Yes.
also, I think it's much more important for religion to realize is that this is coded as a low status belief. It doesn't matter if you're just being a Republican Party member is considered low status in the United States. It just is. But like being a specific, like secular Zionism is not a low status belief in the United States. It's one of those, like, it's less of a default than it was, but it was certainly like, yeah, of course Israel should exist, whatever, right? Don't you condemn Hamas? But this kind of religious Jewish supremacy thing is doomed to be very low status. And I think I'm not saying at all it's a red herring. It's clearly a project they're pushing, but I'm always worried about hyper fixating on it, because even when you look at the Trump administration, when they implement these policies, they're not using this language. Somebody who I think is a good example of like what the Trump project is meant to produce is like John Fetterman, who is a Democrat, who is just aligned on Israel with like the most extreme forms of secular Zionism. Or what's his dick? Who's the guy with no legs? The guy who lost his legs in Iraq, who's joined the IDF.
Brian Mast.
Neither of those guys are like. I mean, I believe they're both Christians nominally, but when they do the God bit, you can tell it doesn't come from the heart. Like so much of the Christian aspect of design is just increasingly like insincere, and I wonder how serious to take this project, because it just seems like the actual end goal is secular Zionism. We just need to have it. It's almost like a legacy project. Like young Republican, like Charlie Kirk is a good example. Charlie Kirk would invoke religious Zionist like rhetoric sometimes, but he still had to do like the America First stuff, right? That does not like. I don't think Charlie Kirk was a sincere Christian Zionist, like in his faith life.
I don't think he was a sincere anything, but
yeah. It's
Christian
very
Zionism's a meme. It doesn't like it is only to,
but it is
only
like
exists to get
ideologically
religious fanatics that are already an extreme small population of people to love Jews. That's all it exists for. And then left wingers like make an example out of it to point at them and be like, look, these are the real guys that are running things. And it's total bullshit. Like even during the war on terror and Bush's stuff. I mean, the most even like the rhetoric with that was like Sam Francis battle like Clash of Civilization shit.
Yeah, or like or was like libtarded, like
Yeah. Like Trump saying that we're gonna go free the homosexuals in fucking Iran. That's not Christian Zionism. And like I remember I posed this question before. It's like, listen, if Christian Zionism is like the thing, if that's the thing, how come they can't get anything else done besides the Zionism, right? They can't get homosexuality regulated. They can't do transgender regulation, anything like that, right? You got Roe v. Wade overturned, but even then, like, still half the states have abortion. You can't get anything else done except the Zionism. Yeah. Then it's just nonsense, it's just nonsense. It's interesting to see like what these people think, because I mean they'll say more ridiculous shit revolving Jews than like the Jews will. They like some of them sound like Randy Fine, but I just feel like it's never been something that's been popular. It's always been like, even when people would reference Christianity going and fighting the Muslims in like Afghanistan or Iraq, even that was still secular. It was like an identification of like, this is the West going and conquering, these barbarians, right? It still wasn't rooted in like a legitimate belief and like, we believe that God has promised the Jewish people this land and we have to go fight all the people who oppose that. That was like never popular ever.
Yeah, and like I tend to think that right now they are really in what John Mearsheimer kind of is ridiculously called smash mouth politics. I don't know, this is some sort of like really old timey term, but like they don't as Trump wrote in his latest rant on Truth Social about Joe Kent, no more Mr. Nice Guy in all caps. Like they can't tolerate any sort of dissent. Like right now they just want to ban everyone and like make all criticism illegal and so on. And like they're doing that. They really are kind of what I find interesting here is that like you can tell how bad things are just by how quote unquote reasonable someone like Ezra Klein is doing. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So like Ezra Klein, he's out there like defending Hassan Piker. Saying like, oh, well, Hassan Piker isn't the problem. You need to stop attacking him. Like the reason he says these things is because Israel is really bad and they're doing bad things and kids watch Israel doing bad things and they don't like it. And so if you think you're going to solve this by canceling Ezra Klein or Hassan Piker, you are an idiot. Like Ezra Klein is writing that in the New York Times, but he's doing that because like other people are like criticizing. Like there is this amazing clip now circulating where like this guy who's like the host of some podcast called like Jewish Life or whatever, he's like talking about Hassan Piker and his ilk, and fucking Vosh is doing like this early life check. He's just like in his...
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh God, like please, maybe one day have one Jew in Hollywood. Like Vosh is just ripping this guy to pieces.
What's interesting about that
I've
clip
lost
is
my hentai watching anarchists. What do you have lost middle America? It's like
yeah. If you've lost Vosh, if Vosh is doing early life checks, that is really, really bad. That is super bad.
And one thing that's interesting about that clip is when he's reading the dude's early life, it is like every other Jew has like some bullshit show, which is that like his parents are very well connected in like organized.
And he's saying that, wow, what a well connected Jew. Like this is a 5-alarm fire. Ezra Klein realizes that, like, okay, he can either have Hassan Piker, or he can try to ban Hassan Piker, and then Vosh will be throwing up Roman salutes or whatever, and like that weird like Canadian Sami like Marxist guy, I can't remember the name of, like that living meme, he's gonna be starting to like read Mein Kampf instead of like the collected works of Mao.
I did see a liberal Zionist making this point, who also, well, maybe it might have been even like one of these like Jews positions, anti-Zionists. They were talking about how lucky that the Jews are that Hassan does have a serious ideological commitment to anti-Semitism. Like Hassan truly does take it seriously, like that you can't be anti-Semitic in his chat. Like he cracks on that very hard. Like even ironically, like he actually is anti-Semitic, but he's also doing pro-Palestine stuff. And I do think there is definitely like a case to be made that he is holding back a lot of his energy. Like it's, I actually don't believe in the idea that like, oh, if you ban someone, they come back stronger. But I think Hassan is like a gatekeeper. He is in that kind of Jordan Peterson space where it seems like he is causing radicalism when he is actually containing it heavily. And I think his containment effect is very underrated.
Yeah, and I can't remember who it was, but it was like some leftist actually messaged me, and he's like regaled, or he told me this anecdote or whatever, like very recently, where it's like he posted something on X that was like to be clear, like it was really anti-Semitic, like no two ways about it, and he posted that as a sort of quote unquote ironic response to some really big leftist account. And so what happens is that this, and he sort of complains like he didn't even retweet me, he only liked it and followed me because I like posted anti-Semitism at him. And like that is the thing that I think people are really worried about. Like, if you start to open up, like, if you start to actually dig here, how much of, like, is Hassan Piker really anti-Semitic warrior? Because, like, at the end of the day, like, the thing that comes through with someone like Wash is that he's just sick of the bullshit. Like, it's really tiring at some point to listen to a guy who is like a fucking Hollywood Nepo baby writing an open letter about like how Hollywood needs to sort of include Jews in the representation statistics. Because it's like, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you know, ideally, they wouldn't even want to be in that situation to where do you have to worry about if Hassan Piker is like actually ideologically committed to like anti-Zionism or anti-Semitism. And then like, well, if you cancel Hassan Piker, you're going to get people who actually do not give a shit. They don't want to even be in that situation. Yeah. They do not want to accept Hassan Piker's anti-Zionism. And they sure as hell don't want to accept Vosh like going and background, you know, like doing an early like check. Like they don't want that at all.
Well, I mean, right? look at Jackson Hinkle, like talking to Ansarallah, giving a speech.
Well, that's what
like,
I was going to say. Hassan Piker did the same thing with Ansarallah, right? Like he was defending like the chant, you know, the whole like the Ansarallah.
He was in Yemen. He was in the march.
I know Hinkle was like doing like they're like literally chanting like, you know, the thing. And
the
Piker,
white
like,
boy who says Inshallah.
Like what got Hassan Piker previously like really big in trouble with leftists is because of his defense of Ansarallah. He said that, you know, these guys aren't that bad. They're not anti-Semites. They're freedom fighters. And everyone looked at him. It's like, hold on. They're not anti-Semites. In the chant, they're saying curse upon the Jews. Like what like they're like what Westerners call the Houthis. Like they're one of the last groups that have not like cucked out on like saying like, yeah, we don't like the Jews, right? Like Hezbollah and Hamas, like, you know, they've kind of said that, you know, we don't hate the Jews or whatever. The Houthis aren't backing down on that shit. They're like the ones that are still out there chanting curse upon the Jews and death to Israel.
Yeah, and like
you know, it's funny seeing these leftists defend it, and then like the Jews like get like super scared about it. Like that is
Hassan Piker. He's like he's even worse than defending Ansarallah. He's also saying, yeah, I'd pick like every time, like in the choice between voting for Israel or voting for Hamas, I'd vote for Hamas every
Hamas.
time. Yeah, like that's what he said, and he said it recently. And so for someone like Ezra Klein to defend him when he says stuff like that shows that like there is kind of this real number one, like you have this faction and they are the dominant faction. They are interested in playing like hardball. They are going like you either lay down, you either get down or you lay down, as the saying goes. Like that is what they want to say to everyone. Like you will light the candle on the menorah, you will center the Holocaust, you will agree to like banning, like legally implementing the thing where if you say the Jews killed Jesus or whatever because it says so in the Bible, okay, well that's prison time. And then you have Ezra Kleins and the like who basically like they, because they're on the left or like the liberal sort of left liberal, left of center liberalism, like they are sounding like the 5-alarm fire, like alarm here, in that if we don't like have a gatekeeper here, we're gonna lose our entire control over this thing. And I think that is correct. Like, but that is also, again, the promise of someone like Yoram Hasoni was, I could be like the Ezra Klein on the right, in a sense. And now, like, there is no interest in that. Like, not any right-wing Israeli or Jew like today. They are not. They don't want an Ezra Klein. They want someone. They want the Laura Loomer. Like
Right.
they want a torpedo. They want a hitman. They want someone who goes in and just sort of, you know, gets Trump to denounce Joe Kent, Tucker Carlson, and everyone else, and says like, unless you're 100% on the team, you're off the team.
Right. And
That's-
Laura Loomer is such a piece of shit. Like that woman's evil and always has been evil. Lewis, I'm sure you know why. Like Laura Loomer in 2016 was like doxing the family members of our friends, and the fact that anyone could take her seriously at all and associate with her at all is evil. But she'll have more power than any right winger on Twitter will ever have. Right? Like
Yeah.
it is her like telling Trump to say this about Tucker Carlson and Joe Kent and Alex Jones. Like that's her, right? It's her that's going and telling Trump, you know, it was Iran that bombed their own school, right? That's her.
Yeah.
And that's what you're completely correct. That's what the Jews want. And on the left, the Jews want someone like, I think Mehdi Hassan's actually a good example. You know, someone like that, to where you'll get these, you know, a disavowal of all resistant groups and a support of what the Jews did in Syria and support what they do in Ukraine, and argue with an Iranian about, you know, free speech in Iran and the killing of 20,000 protesters, right? That's something that the Jews would want. But they have to deal with guys like Hassan Piker and others who are just like, yeah, we support Ansarullah. I'll vote for Hamas. Hezbollah are freedom fighters.
And there's also an economic aspect to this that I think is very underrated, is that creatures like Mehdi Hassan are totally like beholden for their income on, frankly, like Jewish supremacists. Mehdi Hassan had an MSNBC show. It was canceled because he was a Muslim when October 7th happened.
Yeah.
Well,
People forget this.
there was like a blanket firing of like 13 Muslims.
When October 7th happened,
Yeah.
every single Muslim MSNBC employee had a show, and there were like 3 or 4 of them all had their shows taken away, like very openly. Like MSNBC was clearly a problem, and of course, because they're like made people, they're jumped in loyalists. None of these people broke solidarity on that. They said we agree, it was just a schedule change, and you know, Hamas is evil, right? Like Mehdi Hassan is a dog, like he's a worthless person. But he also is dependent for his income on being able to go on these shows. Like they do have something on him, right? Mehdi Hassan is no one. If Piers Morgan doesn't have him on, if MSNBC doesn't have him on as a guest, then he's no longer, he could go star. Hassan Piker does have a native audience, and at this point, like Twitch is his own. He's his own publisher, right? And even if they were to fire him, it's not just like Twitch or Twitch ban him. He has made enough money in his life and that he doesn't need to work ever again, right? He is doing it for the love of the game. And his show, even if he had put his show up on Rumble or Anarchist Rumble, whatever equivalent we made, the way it disseminates is not actually that people watch the Hassan Parker live stream, which is on for 8 hours a day. It goes out in clips, which are not bannable, right? Like,
did you see that report too about the clips?
Well,
dude,
they tried to ban the Tate brothers from clips forever. You can't ban clips of a person.
Yeah, you can't ban them. And they also do much better numbers than the show. There was a report the other day, and it was like Hassan Piker, Fuentes, and I forgot who the other one was. And they like compared. They're like, okay, here's the average like viewership of like their stream, and like for Nick Fuentes, it's like 19K. Piker, it's like 30K. But here's like the views of the clips. And I mean, it's in like the 600, 700,000s, right? And it's like, there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
There's just nothing. Unless you want to do like 2020 style ban to where like how they have it with TRS, which is like if these things are mentioned, immediately it gets thrown in, right? You have an algorithm that detects it, bam. You can't, it's just like it recognizes it, banned immediately.
Well, they tried, maybe they were lying. But it did seem like they were trying to do that to the Tates, and it just didn't work.
To who? Andrew Tate?
The Tates, yeah. Remember eventually, like, the Tates were banned from Instagram and TikTok. They were like,
they're criminals. They should be just.
No, I don't think they should. I'm not banned or not banned, but you couldn't ban their clips. Still got out. Like it was.
No, you can't do that. You can't do that. Anyway, it's been an hour. It's been over an hour. I think we're good here. Thanks for coming on, tinkzorg. You want to plug anything?
No. I'm hoping to actually write some more about this Nuremberg Christianity. I'm starting to see I saw like a Christian pastor do like a show on the article, because apparently like more and more actual Christians in the US are sort of passing it around. So that's I'm hoping to do more stuff on that, but I'll let you know if I get more stuff to shill in the future.
Good. All right, man. Thanks for coming on, man. Anytime you want to come back on, you can. Just let us know, and we'll have you on. It's always a pleasure. And anyways, everybody, that's it. We will see you in Valhalla.